Okay, I don't know about you, but every time I turn around, I feel like somebody's always saying, I've been gaslit, you're gaslighting me. And it's super dramatic. And part of me feels like when I see this happen, are they actually using the term correctly? So what do you think gaslighting means? What does it mean to you? Let me know in the comments. But that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about a bunch of different ways, 10 of them to be precise, on examples of gaslighting, how it looks, how it feels, and what you can do to combat it, or just to offer some counter programming to it to get out of the situation unscathed. So here's the definition of gaslighting. Gaslighting is the denial of reality. It's paired with a process of undermining someone's confidence in themselves, often by someone they trust or depend on. But let's simplify it, right? I need to dumb things down for myself. So basically, it's when someone makes you doubt your own memory, your instincts, or version of events to gain control. And that's the key here, is they are looking for control. They are trying to control a situation, a narrative, to serve their own interest. And that is the problem here. So this is all about control. And it's often gradual, right? It doesn't just come and smack you right upside the face where somebody's gaslighting you. It actually happens over time. So it's in meetings, it's one-on-one. So it really erodes your self-trust. And if we talk about trust, you hear me talk about this all the time. In my favorite book, it's The Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey. And when you're working on trust, the first level of trust that you need to work on is self-trust. And gaslighting actually works against you having trust in yourself. So let's look at some common signs, and those include denying facts, twisting feedback, or shaming requests for recognition. All right, tell me if these examples sound familiar. Here's some real-world workplace examples. I worked overtime on that project. Wow, you're pretty petty. It's really about the team here. I haven't had a raise in years. You must not be committed to the mission of our organization. I'm overwhelmed with tasks since all these layoffs. Everyone's doing more. Don't you care about the company? Does any of that sound familiar? Has anybody experienced that before? I have. These things happen all the time, and they undermine your confidence, your trust in yourself, and sometimes can be really detrimental and, quite frankly, a big old mind F. So here's the first sign you're being gaslit. It's small, constant lies. And it undermines your sense of what's real. Like, you actually question your own reality. And it starts with some simple phrase, well, I never said that. And it's not just lying, it's actually just rewriting this reality over time to, again, control the situation and control you. So here's an example. You're told to do something a certain way. Later, your boss said they never said that. Who's ever been in that situation? I know I have. And either they are legit forgetful, which can be possible, or they're trying to control you to save face, to make themselves look better, to position themselves to a point of even greater power over you. What do you say to counteract that? You can say something. So if they said, I never said that, you can say, well, that's not what I heard. And I love having my receipts, right? So I love a good email that I can throw back in somebody's face and like, yeah, you did say that, right? You need to be firm, neutral, and unshakable, right? I think that one common theme you're going to see throughout this video is you have to remain calm and professional. Don't play into their bullshit, because that just makes it worse, and you actually look worse in the situation, and they win when you play into their drama. So when they say, hey, I never said that, say, well, that's not what I heard, and clearly we disagree. And just let silence do the heavy lifting. Don't say any more, and just let it sit there, and they will usually back down. So the second sign is they make you second guess your own decisions. And I've got a quick story for you. When I was doing an investigation on a sexual harassment situation in the workplace, the union and the attorneys for the accused were basically gaslighting me along the way. They were calling into question every decision, every point of fact I had from my investigation, to the point where I almost thought I was crazy, because they just kept throwing it at me. Well, why did you do this? And no, that can't be true, right? And even though I knew it was true and I knew I did a good job, I was starting to question my own self. So their job, and quite frankly, they were doing it well at one point, was to create that internal self-doubt in me, such that I would make a mistake that they could actually exploit to help defend their employee or their client or whatever you want to call it. It made me actually think my instincts were wrong. When I was actually told after the investigation by one of the senior leaders in our company that said, Rob, I know they raked you over the coals in that arbitration, but what I want you to know is you were spot on in every point of your investigation. And quite frankly, that feedback made me feel so much better because I walked out of that arbitration thinking I'd done the worst job ever, when in fact I was being gaslit and that was their strategy. Here's another example. If you take the initiative, somebody could frame it as, oh, well, you know what? You're always overstepping. You always stay out of your lane. And what could you say to counterbalance that, right? You could say stuff like, I'm confident in the decisions I've made, or, you know what? I actually see things differently. And these one-liners you can drop out there and just let it sit there. Do not keep talking. Again, let silence do the heavy lifting, because they're going to say something into that that's going to make them look worse. And pretty much everybody in the room that's watching this go down is going to see who's gaslighting who. Here's another sign that you're being gaslit, and that they turn your concerns into an attack. It's a classic bait and switch. You raise an issue and they say, well, it's actually your fault, when you know it's not, but you're raising an important issue. And when it's presented that way, especially in public, in a meeting or whatever it is, it can actually put you back on your heels, where in the moment you're like, oh crap, are they actually right? You know what? You have to trust your instincts. Here's another example. You could say, after a team project or whatever, your work wasn't credited enough or given any acknowledgement. You could say, hey, why wasn't my work credited in this? And they could say, well, you know what? You're just ungrateful. It is about you. And when you're asking a legitimate question, because recognition is important, accomplishments in the workplace are important. And if your leaders or teammates or whatever aren't recognizing that and giving you the credit that you're due, that's a problem, and it's a valid point to raise. And how could you combat this if somebody says, well, you know what, you're just ungrateful? So what could you say? You could say, this is about contribution. It's not about conflict. Or, you know what, I'm just expressing a concern here. I'm not assessing blame, right? And then again, back right off, right? Because you're now taking that power back and you're saying to them, wow, you're blaming me for something I'm just asking about, right? Again, that actually makes them look bad and look like the gaslighter they are. When I was doing this research for this video, I got to this one and I hadn't thought about it this way, but it also kind of is similar to being in an abusive relationship in your personal life, right? Because one sign of a person that is abusive or a gaslighter in what we're talking about today is they try to isolate you. They subtly cut you off from mentors, support, or your peer feedback. They make you dependent on them for your validation. I'm right, everybody else is wrong, so only listen to me. And that's not healthy. One example could be, hey, Rob, you go to the legal department too much and really spend too much time with the attorneys. It makes you look paranoid. I'm like, oh, wow, I hadn't thought about that if I'm just taking that at face value. If you're trying to do your job like I was when I worked with our legal department, I would rely on them for input, right? And so you could say, hey, I rely on that team for insight to do my job, and that's how I do my best work. If you're anchoring it in your actual job function and how you do your work, it makes them just look petty. Throw it out there, remain calm and professional, and just let silence do the heavy lifting. You'll take back that power, and that's the key here. And here's another sign you're being gaslit is you end up in these no-win situations with the alleged gaslighter. Every conversation seems to be rigged against you, and eventually you just fold. You give up. You're like, I can't win with you. I'm just not going to engage. And you walk away feeling actually defeated because you weren't able to contribute to the conversation and get your point across. And that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to make you look bad and make them look better by default. So here's an example. You point out some issues and then you're accused by them of, well, you're not a team player if all you do is focus on the negative. What you could say is, it's very simple. Again, maintain the calm and professional demeanor and just say, you know what, I understand you disagree with me, period, end of sentence. Don't get hooked into their drama, right? Just keep repeating it and say, okay, we just disagree. You disagree with me. I understand that. Got it. Move on. So this next one, we seem to see play out in public life every day when just by turning on the news, right? It's the distraction game. It's the changing the subject. They're trying to derail a hard conversation with all these distractions over here. Who does that sound like? Anyway, but it happens all the time in the work. And it's like the cat chasing the laser pointer on the wall, right? You're going all over the place and you've lost sight. And we've been in these meetings, right? We've been in these meetings where somebody distracts us with this tangent or whatever it is, shiny object over here. And the next thing we do, we're either staying late in the meeting to accomplish what we set out to accomplish from the start of the meeting, or we never accomplish what we started out to and we walk away from a very unproductive meeting. And is that, I don't know about you, but that's wildly annoying. So what can you do? You have to reground people or this person. Hey, you know what? Let's stay focused on the task at hand or the issue we started with. And we'll get to this other stuff later. Really put them aside and really bring that conversation back to the original topic. They may try again to change the subject, but no. We need to focus on this first. And then, hey, let's take your concerns offline or whatever it is. Oh, I'm speaking HR jargon right now, aren't I? Or corporate jargon. Don't follow their bounce. If you follow their bounce or that shiny thing on the wall, it's a recipe for an unproductive meeting and an unproductive dialogue and not getting anything done. The next one I think is probably one of the more diabolical ones on the list, and that is shame-based minimizing. So the gaslighter is going to do this, and we've seen this movie before, right? Their goal is to make you feel too emotional, too intense, or just too much, right? And I know women in the workplace deal with this all the time, right? They're dubbed as too emotional. And I don't know, my female friends in the workplace, they do not like that. And I totally get that. A gaslighter is going to try and make them feel that way, right? It shifts the focus to them trying to find fault with you. You know, here's an example. You care too much, and you know what? No one else takes this so personally, Jane. It's so condescending, first of all. Their goal is actually to elicit more emotion from you. So if you're passionate about your job and then they're saying, well, you're too passionate, you know, and everything, and then you get angry at that, it shifts the focus back to you. They're trying to set you up for failure. So again, all you have to do is respond with a calm, professional demeanor. I'm expressing a valid concern. Period. End of sentence. Don't play into their game. My emotions are actually appropriate for what's happening. Again, you're validating your stance and saying this is absolutely appropriate and everything you just said is wrong. So the next one is actually, it's not only gaslighting, it's also a low trust behavior, right? So if you're working with, and this could be a leader you're working with or a peer or even a subordinate, right? Is they don't apologize. They just redirect, right? They never own anything. And just to go, back to my favorite book, The Speed of Trust, one thing that builds trust is you own your mistakes. And these people create a low trust environment, hand over fist, because they never own their mistakes or own that they were wrong. So they deny, they deflect, they distract. That is the name of the game. That's their mission, and they're not going to deviate from it. So what do you do with that person, right? Because it can be maddening because they basically just are, nope, you're wrong, I'm right, I didn't say that, or whatever the case may be. So you could just say, again, even keel, we remember things differently. And then say nothing more, right? Because that will drive them nuts. They're going to have to fill the space, and you have the power at that point. And the next one is they're weaponizing something. And this time they're weaponizing their care for you. And this one makes me cringe because it always comes off so condescending. And it's this classic phrase, I only said that because I care. No, you don't. You don't care. You're trying to make me look bad or make me feel worse. And they use that affection as a guilt trip to shield them from accountability, right? So they don't want to be accountable that they hurt your feelings or, were condescending or whatever it is. They are trying to tee it up as feedback or mask things. So what can you say to combat that, right? You can share the impact with them, right? Hey, you know what? I hear that you say you care about me, but it's not supposed to hurt. It's not supposed to sting. It's supposed to be constructive care. Or that doesn't feel like support to me. Here's another one that pops up frequently, and sometimes it's subtle to see because it may not have the dramatic element some of the other examples we've been talking about do. But your needs, you know what? Your needs are too much, but their needs, always urgent and always a high priority, right? It's often framed as a commitment issue, right? Well, if you were really loyal, you wouldn't ask for more. So I'm talking about, like I say, an asking for a raise situation here, right? So you could say stuff like, hey, you know what? I hear what you're saying, but my work deserves better recognition. Or I believe fair compensation shows mutual respect for each other. So again, keep it grounded, keep it fact-based, keep it as unemotional as possible. And I think you can navigate that conversation a little better. Again, in a compensation conversation like the one I just cited, you know, that leader does hold some of the power there because they have to sign off on it. But, you know, if they're the ones that are gaslighting you to kind of make you go away in that situation, saying some of the phrases like, you know what, my work deserves recognition, those types of things will, again, keep it grounded and keep it anchored on your work. Now, you have to have the results and the details to back it up, right? So come with your accomplishments and all that type of stuff if you do plan to ask for a raise. But don't let them gaslight you just to get out of an uncomfortable situation they don't want to have, right? Keep it grounded and anchored in your job and your results. So again, just to sum this video up a little bit, is what do you do when you find this is happening? You see, you know, examples of what we've been talking about today in say your leader, or maybe it's multiple examples coming from the same person, right? So you can do a couple of things. One, you could make sure you just kind of document. Like I said before, I love nothing more than finding that email and forwarding back and saying, here's what we discussed, maybe even highlighting it. And then always behave calmly and stay professional, right? That's one thing you can do just to counterbalance these folks and how they behave. Also, I would offer say less. The less is more in this equation, right? Let silence do the heavy lifting. Throw out one of these one-liners, calmly and professional, and just let it sit there. They won't know what to do with it, and anything they say is going to make them look worse. The other thing is don't tangle with their reality. If, again, we talked about the distraction game, if they're taking you all over the place and making you chase a laser pointer over the wall, anchor it back in the original topic or whatever is at hand, right? Say, bring the focus back. Don't get tied up in their distractions. And if their reaction is to react with guilt, betrayal, or blame, then you know you're dealing with a gaslighter. They're not actively listening to you. It's all about them trying to control you. And that's the key to deciphering if somebody is trying to say, offer you some feedback that you don't want to hear, and you're thinking, oh, they're gaslighting me. Okay, maybe think about it and use the filter of what are they trying to control? Are they genuinely trying to help me be a better employee by giving me feedback? If that's the answer, then okay, that's okay. But if they're trying to control you, right, as part of their master plan for workplace domination, then you know you're dealing with a gaslighter. So I cannot say this enough. Gaslighting can be a serious problem. It does gradually creep up on you, and it's usually from, you know, the usual suspects of offenders, and they're usually very insecure. It's just why they've taken up gaslighting to, you know, gain as much control as they can and control you and how you behave and how you feel. But it erodes your self-trust. And again, I can't really underline more. If you're trying to operate as a high trust, high integrity individual, you've got to have trust and confidence in yourself first. And these gaslighters are trying to erode that self-trust and confidence you have. And how do I react to that? That's the big, that's what you can control. You can't control them gaslighting you, but you can control how you respond. And you can say key phrases like the following. Hey, that's what I heard. I understand you disagree. We remember things very differently. My needs matter too. These one-liners really help you regain the power in that conversation. And like I said a minute ago, their reaction to it, they can't help themselves. They are going to react, and it's actually going to make them look worse. And you will have that power back. I hope you found this video helpful. And if you're dealing with a gaslighter, let me know how it's going and what they're saying to you and how they're gaslighting you in the workplace. I'd love to hear your stories. Stand your ground. Again, stay calm, stay professional, and stand up to them. That's the only way these gaslighters, or even calling them bullies, is they're going to back down and you're going to earn some respect. But keep your integrity. Don't get caught up in their drama. So if you like this type of content, again, my name's Rob. I would be really honored if you would like and subscribe to this channel. It does help me out, and I'd really appreciate it. And stay tuned for more videos. And until next time, we'll catch you later. Bye. This video was recorded and produced by Just Talk Studios, the premier video podcasting studio in Bellevue, Washington. Visit justtalkstudios.com to learn more and book your session today.